A lot of people ask me what are some of the most transformable moments that I've had while working here at the Midnight Mission. I've been here 12 years. I've got a whole bunch of different stories that really impacted me. But I think one of the most glaring examples of what the Midnight Mission does in its recovery program comes from this particular story. We had a participant here in our men's healthy living program, I don't know, maybe 7 or 8 years ago. And he was dying. He was dying of liver failure and did not qualify for a liver transplant because of his prior drug and alcohol abuse. And what really stuck out about this one individual was that he was determined to die sober for his daughter. He did not want to be loaded and die and have that the last thing that she remembered him by. So he had come into the Midnight Mission. He had excelled, really engaged in the 12-step process, had a sponsor, was going to meetings, and really plugged in. And the liver started to fail to a point where it just left him a shell of who he was. Now, giving you a little background on this guy, he had come from the Inland Empire. He was a skinhead or, whatever you want to tag that with, but he was very racist. He had very racist views. He had very anti-gay views. He was, it was just the culture he was raised in. And I remember thinking when he first came in, I wonder how he's going to do in this population. He did well. He stayed to himself with the exception of his 12-step work and never got in any trouble or anything like that. But when he was failing, he had met 3 gentlemen who had befriended him in his most desperate time of need. It finally reached the point where he couldn't even get out of the bed to relieve himself or to get a meal. And these 3 men took care of him for probably the last 60 days of his life. He was sent to the hospital multiple times and they kept releasing him with, "There's nothing we can do." So he would come back and get in his bed, and these guys would make sure he was eating and showering him and all of that. And finally, this gentleman passed away. It was very sad. And at the same time, there was a sense of accomplishment because he had achieved the goal of dying sober, and his daughter did get to see that. We had a memorial service here, and the impactful part of this story comes from this. The memorial happened. We set up the dining room. A lot of his friends from the Inland Empire came down to the service. And from the stage, we were able to introduce the 3 men who had helped him maintain his sobriety, feed him, clothe him, shower him, do all those things from him. And the look of his friends' faces, the shock when they saw that it was a black man, a Jewish man, and a gay Asian man that had taken care of him in the last days of his life, sent a message to this whole organization of what you think is important isn't so important. The love that these men displayed taking care of somebody who really didn't like them when they first met became his caretaker. And the power of the 12-step program in our healthy living program, the part about acceptance, the part about reaching out a hand and helping somebody up is something that I will never, ever forget. Now as the CEO of the Midnight Mission, I look around and I see those stories, maybe not to that extreme, but I see them happening on a daily basis in the hallways. I see white sitting with black, gay sitting with straight. It just doesn't matter. It's one common course, one course to sobriety, and then, of course, to self-sufficiency. And I will always be proud of those guys that took care of that participant. And that was one of the most impactful stories that happened to me here.